Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessieNeoTweets and at She Knows Arsenal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are. Um, what to even say at this point? Like, I have to be honest, I'm not really shocked at all that we turned around and made one loss into two, and who knows how many more it will be. There's so many layers to this conversation. Like, it's not even just about today's performance. It's about how we prepared for the season and how we prepared based on what happened last season. There's so many different factors here, and like I can't even begin to try to unpack it. We're going to obviously do individual player ratings, but I just have to say this part. You can't do the same things over and over again and like expect different results. Last season around this exact same time, we were fighting for the Europa League and we got injuries to key players. And Arteta turned around and in the Europa League semifinal started to move players like Xhaka out of his position, put him at left back, play El Neni, I think it was, or maybe it was Thomas Partey. I can't remember, but I know Thomas was in and out at that time, and starting Odegaard and Smith Rowe in midfield. Every time we see this midfield, we've seen it quite a bit. We've seen it at least 4 or 5 times. It's never successful. Like, it's actually never successful. And so I feel like it's really confusing to me why we continue to do it and why it's our plan B. Well, even earlier in the season when we had that midfield against Sunderland, we really struggled. Like, it really took until Arteta went back to a double pivot and brought Xhaka in for us to secure that game. So I just don't understand why he goes back to it. But that's why before the game, 2 days ago, when I was on the Arsenal Vision podcast, I was saying that this is what I thought he'd go with. And the reason why I said that is because I'm not convinced that Arteta has gotten past this. Okay, if I don't have my starting 11, I can maneuver around it and make sure that we continue. I get that, like, things happen and you lose games, but it's not even so much when we lose games. We lose games and we go on bad runs because we can't figure out plan B quick enough. There's no plan B, or the plan B is just bad. And that plan B that he has, where he takes Xhaka out of midfield, puts him at left back, sticks Sambi of all people. I mean, if you wanted to expose somebody as badly as you could, you put Sambi by himself in midfield with Odegaard and Smith Rowe. It just doesn't make any sense. And then when the game continued to go on, he's like, "Oh shit, I need Jack in midfield. Let me put Martinelli at left back." Yeah, that just says it all. But like, you could say it was his inexperience, but he's already experienced that before last season. So why are you not learning your lesson? And then it's the continued like n- having players that have some sort of value, having a couple of bad games, and instead of trying to rehabilitate them, you pound them into the ground further by you're not going to be able to put Tavares in the game anymore. You're not going to be able to play him anymore, you know, because if you put a midfielder and then Martinelli at left back before you put him there, he kept standing up on the bench and sitting back down. And I'm just like, he's done. Like, and you need a left back for the rest of the season. If this is what you're doing, like, when are we going to see another win? It doesn't even matter who we're playing because Brighton at home in bad form just beat us. Very similarly to Everton. So where's the next win coming from? Because we're not going to get Thomas Partey back. We're not going to get Tierney back. So like, why can't you figure it out? Graham Potter sat there and watched us lose against Crystal Palace, and a lot of the reason why we lost is because we couldn't get up to the physicality and the intensity of the match. So what did he do? He turned around and put Mwepu, Casado, and Basuma in his midfield. He had other options. So he scouted us and he said, as long as I have some physical players in here, they won't be able to cope. And then Arteta turned around and put our least physical midfield out there. Nobody's going to allow Odegaard, Sambi, and ESR to play. And we never get the rub of the green. We're not the types to, after, a player gets 3 or 4 fouls on the bounce, they don't get red cards. So if that's what you were counting on, that was stupid. For me, this is all about, we've now we know Arteta has not learned his lesson. He's very stubborn, and his stubbornness has cost us. And I get that the players didn't play well, but equally, like, how can you play well when maybe you're not comfortable with what the manager is asking you to do, or you're not setting them up for success? And it's just wild. Like, it's really wild. And I don't know, top 4 felt gone for me after the Crystal Palace game, to be honest, because I was just like, well, how are we gonna rebound from this? Like, we really needed those 3 points to propel us forward. Now it's kind of like, I don't see this team picking itself up, um, because now they could check out mentally. If Spurs win, they can just check out of top 4, and at this point, like, who knows where we'll finish, because newsflash, we were never, it was almost like people thought we were running away with top 4. We're not that far away from falling out of the top 6, and we never have been. There's never been a gap. So at this point, Arteta's job is so hard because we're no longer going to be fighting for what they were saying that they were fighting for, but they could easily slip out of the top 6 and end up in the Conference League or worse. We couldn't take advantage of Man United losing. Newsflash, they don't really have to do much to win games. So if they just decide to play even a little bit better than what they did today, they probably win a couple of games. How are we going to beat Southampton? I know that they got smashed today, but we're a good team to come up against right now for Southampton to get back onto, get back into gear. Brighton weren't even playing for anything today. Like, we were the team playing for top 4. They're playing for nothing. They're safe. So it's really bad. Like, it's really bad. And it's all on Arteta. And there was parts of the fan base that were really geeking up Arsenal to be this clear favorite of top 4. And for a margin, for a time we were, right? But we're not really now. And all it took was Spurs to win and for us to lose for everything to change around. And it's just frustrating sometimes, one, from like just being frustrated that the team has lost twice in a row, but it's more frustrating. It compounds it when there's people that were really gassing us up. So now it feels like this monumental slide, when if we were just more realistic about who we were at this point, we probably wouldn't be as disappointed, because we know what Arteta's like. We know what this team is like. We know that they're young. And without Thomas Partey and without Kieran Tierney, it was always going to be really difficult. So I don't know. And I think you got to hold people accountable when they make these huge claims. Like, it's weird because they go missing when we start losing games, but then show back up when we start winning them. And it's like, you know, we're out here getting cooked because you guys are out here making Champions League compilations and shit. Like, stop. Sorry, gotta sip my coffee. So yeah, back to the football though. I mean, again, tons of different layers. It's the management from Arteta was abysmal today and very similar to what he did last season, but equally the January window always was going to come back into play here, because when we were winning, it was, oh, we made the right decision not to bring in anybody new, or not to bring in any new players. We have to get the exact right profile, and this guy wouldn't have helped, and that guy wouldn't have helped, and we don't need any loans, and all the loans would have been like Dennis Suarez. And I was like, so when Thomas Partey gets hurt, what are we going to do? Like, what's going to happen? It was 17 games until the end of the season, and people were acting like we weren't going to get any injuries, and the club acted like it as well. And not getting midfielders, unfortunately, has cost us. It has. Like, not only just that, like, getting rid of Callum Chambers and Ainsley, I know that they're not the best players, but you could have played Ainsley at left back. He played left wing back for us before. You could play Callum Chambers at right back to keep it more like Tomiyasu, because he's more similar to Tomiyasu, and let Nuno bomb on. We would have had more options and not been so thin, but they were so desperate to get rid of players in thinking about the summer window and what they were going to get then. But what are you going to offer players this season? If you cannot offer them Europa League at the very least, you're fucked. So there you go. But it was fine, because all the players that we were looking at would have probably just been like Dennis Suarez. It's bullshit. And then when you look at Bruno Guimaraes, and I hate to bring it up, but he would have slotted in perfectly on that left-hand side. He would have been the perfect player to bring in. And to see him playing at Newcastle now is like, oh, he wasn't our number one choice. He was far down the list. F that. Not getting people in January, especially not midfielders. And I know that we were looking at strikers too, but you could even look at not getting a striker as an issue. Because if you have more going forward, then maybe if your back is a little bit shaky, you're not in as exposed position. Right now, our defense is not clicking, it's not playing right. Our midfield is skint, and we also don't have any threat up top because Lacazette is dead. So, yeah, we're done. Like, it's very much so a just don't slide out of the top 6. Like, that's pretty much where we are right now. Um, so yeah, like, Leon Fire says, how can you blame Arteta for injuries? I didn't blame Arteta for injuries, but we got injuries last season and he did the exact same thing. Please make sure that you understand what I'm saying. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, we got injuries, so it's okay for us to just slide down the table. It's not. And he had choices to make beyond the injuries. And he chose to put a midfield out there that, one, we've seen before and has been unsuccessful, but also move Granit Xhaka out of midfield. And I mean, that just didn't work. Like, it just didn't work. It didn't work last season. So it's not, oh, Arteta he has injuries to his starting 11, so it's okay for us to just lose to Brighton at home and just to not put up a fight against Crystal Palace. Like, those things don't really, that's not real. And good managers can manage injuries and make sure that we don't slide. And that has been one of the biggest complaints about Arteta, is when he doesn't have his starting 11, he fails. And so it's not about, well, we got injuries, it's fine. It's not okay for him just to fall down the table. Not only that, we went into the transfer window and brought in 2 players to fill those gaps, and neither of those players have the ability to fill those gaps. So not only do we have an issue with the way that we manage the team when we have injuries, but we have an issue in recruitment, because we shouldn't have brought in Tavares and Sambi, because they were not able to, like, they're not able to bridge the gap between, like, Sambi and Thomas Partey are so not on the same stratosphere. And neither is Tierney and Nuno. They're both too raw. So it's not about blaming Arteta for injuries, but all teams get injuries. But we're the team that, when we get injuries, the season is done. And that's unacceptable, because when you had 17 games to go, you had a window open. You had an opportunity to bolster the squad. You knew how many international breaks you had. You knew how many injury prone players you had. You knew how important top 4 would be. But you chose not to do that. Not only did you not bring in players, but you weakened the squad by getting rid of players that you didn't have to. 2 players that are sitting on other teams' benches doing nothing. So, not blaming Arteta for injuries. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Let's see. Cisco says it was criminal for Sambi to be left alone in that midfield. That was the sword. That's the sword he will die on. I mean, why are we going so hard? Like, why not just play Xhaka and Sambi together in midfield and play a Nuno at left back, so we can just play somewhat like we know what we're playing? Like, it's not that, it wouldn't have been that different. I mean, the levels obviously are lower, and Xhaka would have to, like, drop in, but to just expose to play without a midfield is criminal. And to expose Sambi like that is just wrong. And it just doesn't make sense. And then to put Martinelli there, who was at that time our only threat, to put him at left back, it just shows he's, I hate to say it, but he's flapping again. Really, honestly. Let's see. Let's see. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started on these because I know we have like so much to do. Mackie says, I'm sorry, but if the season we finish with injuries costing us one of Arteta, Edu needs to get sacked. The transfer window was nothing short of negligent. I mean, I don't know if Arteta goes anywhere. I really don't. But I have huge questions around recruitment because we've seen this last season. This is the exact thing that happened. We lost Thomas Partey and we lost Tierney, and we couldn't cope with it. Then you bring in 2 players to do that, but the coach doesn't really feel comfortable using one of them, and Sambi is just too raw to play in that position. But weren't there other options? Like, that's the weird thing about the transfer window is that it's always made to, especially people that really want to back the club and make it seem like the club has never done anything wrong, is that there was no other options out there in the market. If we would have brought anybody in, they wouldn't have fit, and this is the right choice. I love Sambi, and I think Nuno has some quality, but I think we could have probably brought in some players that are closer to Sambi or closer to Thomas and Tierney, so that we're not like looking stupid. Basically players that can play in the Premier League. Like, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a mess. It really, really is. So um if we don't make top 4, of course, like, I'm not gonna like lose my shit completely because I never thought we were gonna make it anyway. I thought that we were up there and we had an opportunity, but once the January transfer window closed, I was like, damn, we really are just out here wilding out. So um as long as we finish in the top 6, I'm still okay, but I can see this team sliding to 7th. I can, because West Ham doesn't really seem to be slowing down. Manchester United, like, we didn't really capitalize on them losing their game, and so we have such a hard run in with, obviously, like, I'm looking at what we have out there on the pitch and I'm like, "Damn, we're not gonna be able to create chances against better teams." We were at home against Brighton. Like, they have nothing to play for. We still have to play against Everton and Leeds. Those 2 teams are playing for something, like, whatever. Whatever. Um, whatever, man. Like, it's just so bad. So yeah, I think let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about Ramsdale. I don't think Ramsdale really had any culpability in what happened today. I do think that it's weird that his distribution has just kind of went away. Like, it's so weird. This team is so weird because it's like, okay, a couple of injuries and all of a sudden nobody can trap a ball, nobody can pass to their man, nobody can find a player. It's weird. I don't think Ramsdale was like culpable because I don't think he could have done anything for those goals, but like he where he had begun to look strong again, he's now shaky, which kind of just speaks to that whole back line. Like, the entire back line is really not alive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've just capitulated completely. And where there was no gaps before, there's tons of gaps now. Where there are bad touches, there wasn't bad touches before. Like, it's so weird. So Ramsdale for me is just gonna get a 5. Like, I don't he didn't have any culpability for me in the goals, but equally I don't think his distribution has been that good. But then also I'm asking myself, who is he passing to? Like, when Thomas is there and we're playing normally, he has so many options, and he doesn't have any options now. And one of the biggest parts of that, I think, is because the center backs know that they don't have to mark Lacazette, so they can actually push up on our central midfielders. They don't have to worry about Lacazette. They just push up on our central midfielders, and either they push up on our central midfielders or they double team on our wingers. So it just creates a situation where all of our players are always double teamed because they literally have to mark nobody. So even if Ramsdale was to try to find Lacazette long, or find Saka long or find Martinelli long, they would never be able to win the ball because we can't isolate. We can't get isolated because the center backs can just do whatever they want. They literally have nobody to mark. It's wild. So yeah, I'll give Ramsdale a 5. He wasn't like terrible, but like I mean, yeah. Like it wasn't great. So Tony, I wonder if Ramsdale is still carrying an injury. I do think that it's weird that it feels like he has come back really quickly. I didn't think that he would come back for the Crystal Palace game, and lo and behold, he was in the goal. Why? Like, if he is still carrying an injury, I do think that we have an issue with playing players that are injured, and then expecting them to do well. I'm just gonna say this now, like, I do think that we mismanage our players. And a lot of that is twofold. It's not having suitable backup so that the manager feels comfortable using those players. And then when you don't have suitable backup, then we play them into the ground and we break them. And we basically, along with their international teams, but it's more in our control. We played Thomas and Tierney until they broke. And Ramsdale doesn't need to play. Like if he is carrying an injury, which I wouldn't be surprised if he was, because he wasn't supposed to come back this quickly. There's no reason to not to there's no reason to stress him out further because we have Leno. It's the same thing with Bukayo Saka. It's like even when he's not 100%, he plays because Arteta just does not trust Pepe. It's just he doesn't use the squad well. So yeah. Let's see. So let's go ahead and talk about Cedric. I don't think Cedric was that bad. Like, I think that he needs to stay off of free kicks. I don't understand why some of our senior players step up to take free kicks that don't need to. I've seen Xhaka do it. I've seen Cedric do it. I've seen Lacazette do it. None of them score free kicks. None of them have good delivery. None of them have anything to add, really, in that department, but they take free kicks, and I don't understand why Cedric does it. When Cedric first got back into the team, he was taking corners as well. I know that his delivery is supposed to be one of the best in the squad, but we're doing just fine with Saka and the young players taking all of our free kicks. They're the best, you know? So stop letting Cedric take free kicks. I think he's as good as the team is around him. So he's when the team was playing well, we didn't see his deficiencies. Now that the team is not playing well, he looks worse. And so it's hard for me to really look at Cedric because I know he's not that good. So for me, it's just more like he's just all right. Like, you know what I mean? So Cedric, and also he just crosses and just doesn't aim. And he does a little bit of that like aimless crossing into the box. And that's just because he's a mid-table type of right back. And we need better than that. We need players that actually think about their crosses before they do them. And yeah, as time has worn on, we definitely need Tomiyasu, but Tomiyasu's nowhere near coming back. So this is what we got. Wouldn't be a bad thing to have maybe, and I hate to say it, but it's like we don't have any other options, and that's because we chose not to have any other options. Chambers has some qualities on the ball, especially in like that center back inverted role that Cedric just doesn't have. And so now we're stuck with Cedric because I don't know what the club was thinking. But yeah, here we are. Cedric, give him a 5. Like he was just average. Yeah, let's see. O'Malley says people have been overhyping Cedric. He is way below standard. Yeah, he's not very good. Let's see. Cedric just spams crosses. Yeah, he doesn't really look and actually pick somebody out. He just kind of slams it into the box, and it's just kind of like, all right, cool, like here you go again. Let's see. Ben White. I guess my initial reaction is like, what has happened to our center back partnership? I know that they're feeling shaky because the guys on either side of them is not really playing that well. But again, there's gaps forming that weren't there before. There's no solidity in that back line. They look really shaky. In the beginning of the game, there were times where I felt like they were letting the balls bounce and they weren't really like taking control of the situation. They were allowing Brighton to like get the ball and then they react. And I didn't really like that. Ben White's distribution was not good today. He couldn't find anybody. But at the same time, when he got the ball and he put his foot on top of the ball, there was like literally nobody moving. Sambi wasn't moving. ESR wasn't moving. Odegaard wasn't moving. And Lacazette wasn't moving. So, and of course, because they have wing backs and 3 center backs, there was no way you were going to be able to put the ball in behind to Saka. So it just is kind of like they had a really tough day. I mean, I can't really blame him for that goal, the first goal or the second one. You guys can let me know if you think that he was at fault for either of those goals, but that first goal that Trossard scored, I just thought I saw every single one of our midfielders jogging back. The center backs got back into their line, but equally we were exposed on the left-hand side because Xhaka was too high, and we got beat on transition like we did a couple of times. We're really bad on transitions. So for me, I'll give Ben White a 5 as well. Like he was just whatever. Like he was, like I don't, because there's other people that are gonna get way lower scores than these guys. Like there were some really poor performances in there. But equally, I'm looking at Ben White, and I'm not really seeing how he made like a lot of mistakes. Because equally, I don't think Brighton had a lot of chances. I don't think either team had a lot of chances. We just when they got chances, we decided to just say, "Hey, go ahead and score. Like this is cool." Um, Let's see. Diallo says Ben needs movement up front. Laka is a statue. Insult to statues. Ben was just like Ramsdale average. Yeah, that's why I think they're just like average. And like when you don't have movement, what are you going to do? And we've seen these performances from Arsenal before. It's almost like we're regressing, and we regress as soon as we don't have Thomas Partey in the team. And that is an issue. That is not something that's just like, well, we don't have Thomas Partey. It's okay. He's been injury prone since we've had him. So to have no contingency, a successful plan B to ensure that we can still progress the ball up the pitch and create chances when he's not there just speaks to the stupidity of this club sometimes. Like I just don't get it. But yeah, Ben White was average. Gabriel is somebody that I've been watching for the last since Man City. Because he's somebody that I think when the going gets tough and we begin to get pressurized, he capitulates, and starts doing stupid shit. And I don't really blame him for either of the goals, but what I will say is that he was so shaky in those first 30 minutes. Every time he received the ball, boom, off of his foot. Every pass was short. Every touch was like a tackle. He was letting the ball bounce in front of him. Like he just hasn't really recovered. Like he started to get solid and then got weak again. And Gabriel is going through another bad period, but he goes through several bad periods in a season. And where he was so faultless and so good at the beginning of the season, it's easier to be that because in the beginning of the season, there's so many more games to recover. Now that there's not a lot of games to recover and every result matters, he's been poor for a while. And I'm worried about him because we're always going to be under pressure, constantly. And so if he can't be in a beacon of calmness back there, then he's going to end up being an issue. So I'm going to give Gabriel a 4. I thought he was the worst in the back line. All his passes were bad. They were rushed. They were just, every pass was going off of his shin. Like it was just, and when you do that from minute 1, you create anxiety and stress amongst the rest of the team. And Gabriel was looking like a leader at the beginning of the season, but now I'm like, oh no, he's not really he's not somebody we can rely upon in difficult moments. And I'm starting to notice that we don't have a lot of players that we can rely upon in difficult moments. Martinelli is probably one of the only players that, and Saka. I do think Saka has built up enough credit in the bank to be like, okay, when we're in a stressful situation, he'll step up. But when we don't play well, we just lose the game, and some of that has to do with the back line. Like if we're not playing well offensively, that doesn't really give us the right to just this it's not a reason to just give up 2 goals. It's not like, so I'm looking at Gabriel a little bit like, oh my gosh, like because when he's bad, he's pretty bad, so I don't know. I'm giving him a 4. Um, let's see. Eureka said Gabriel looked most likely to score, though. I mean, that was the only way that we were going to score a goal. I know Odegaard scored late in the game, but the free kicks and stuff. But like, I get that, but I don't. Him being able to score a header, and I do think that he should be scoring more headers because a lot of times I just feel like he gets there and then he doesn't make the right decision, whatever, whatever. But that aside, he does score goals off of headers. But I don't care about that because defensively, I need you to be solid. And when Ben White passes you the ball the first couple times in the game and you just don't look confident and the ball is bobbling around, you create anxiety back there. And I just think that he kind of that's just his thing, So yeah. Let's see. Tony says we have needed more minor rotation throughout the year. Good holding is better than bad, Gabrielle. Yeah, there hasn't been any rotation this season. It's just been once I get my starting 11 plus 1, that's it. And so now you have a Sambi that doesn't have much minutes under his belt. Now you have a a a a, a Nuno that has no confidence. You don't have any other options, no plan B that we've actually worked on. So we're experimenting now, and it's just stupid. Yeah, Tottenham are gonna win that game, you guys. Like top 4 is theirs at this point. Like at this point for me, it's about not sliding back into 7th or 8th. Like, because it's a very real possibility with the injuries that we have and clearly the lack of confidence in the squad. Tottenham are 100% gonna get top 4. And the difference may just be that they have a manager that knows how to manage the team in a difficult moment. Arteta, when we're in a difficult moment, it takes us so long to recover, and it's just unacceptable. Um, let's see. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So Xhaka playing out of position, like I don't know why he was so high on that first goal. It was like I was hoping that him playing back there meant that he would just kind of play like a back 3 and just kind of stay in his position and not bomb forward, but he was weirdly high in that position and we got exposed, and it wasn't even so funny because they didn't even have to play Lamptey to expose him. It was crazy. So that first goal I could probably say was probably a little bit of Xhaka's fault, but he's playing out of position. How much like blame can you put on a player that's like very slow, not really a left back at all, and you take him out of his position and put him there? Like, so Xhaka gets a 5 for me. I mean, what could he have done better? You know, uh, what could he have done better? Like, I just don't really understand. Um, let's see. May says we tried Xhaka left back in key Europa match and he was exposed almost immediately. Exactly. And so I just I don't get why we went back to it. You know, it's just stupid. So moving on to the midfield or the midfield, because there really wasn't any midfield there. When the lineup came out, I'm just thinking we're totally getting bullied. And then once I saw what Graham Potter did, I was like, oh yeah, like we're getting bopped today. Because you can't have Odegaard, Smith Rowe, and Lakanga against Mwepu, Casado, and Basuma. They were just getting bullied the entire game. And they got to the point where they just didn't, and we've never looked confident playing that way. That's why I don't really understand why he's doing it. I don't understand why he doesn't get that when we don't have our key players, you need to create security within the team and not expose them further. And that's exactly what he did with that midfield. Sambi, um, was not good today. I thought he was exposed, so I always will caveat it with, like, what can you do if you don't have players around you that can cradle you so you don't fall? But equally, he didn't really add anything in possession. He had a bunch of shaky touches, some bad passes. Defensively, he's just not strong enough to be in the midfield for a Premier League team right now. And so, unfortunately, like, I have to give Sambi like a 4. But again, it's like with an asterisk, and at the bottom, like, I'm literally putting the manager exposed him. So that's a key reason why he's gotten this grade. It's just terrible. So yeah, Sambi is just too far away from Thomas Partey at this point to be playing. Even, like, I don't even think at a single pivot, like a double pivot would have helped him, because he just is almost like non-existent in midfield because he just gets swallowed up by everything. And so, I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe you should have played El Neni. I mean, you could have played El Neni and Xhaka, and we probably would have just been more secure. We would have been frustrated by the lack of penetration, but at least El Neni can play up against men, at least. Sambi was never going to get on the ball enough and be able to affect the game enough to make it okay for him to be there, because he was just so exposed. Sambi, I feel so bad for him, but he's been thrown in the deep end, and we don't have to. Like, we don't have to throw him into the deep end. We had a transfer window in January where we could have made a different decision. And they said, there's nobody good enough to play for Arsenal right now in this January transfer window. So we're just going to go with Sambi. Cool. Way to go. Like, that makes sense. Just destroy the kid's confidence while you're at it. So, yeah, it's just stupid. Odegaard was I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't know what the goal looked like. But it doesn't matter what if he got a goal or not. He was non-existent for the entire game, and he's been non-existent since he came back from international break. This entire team has been non-existent since they came back from international break. Odegaard doesn't play well when he plays deeper. We saw at certain points in the match he was dropping deeper to sit next to Sambi Lakanga. That doesn't work. He needs to be playing near Saka so that they can kind of play those 1-2s. But what I will fucking say is that now that teams have realized, and I wasn't 100% um what's the word, convinced that we had been found out against Crystal Palace. We have been found out. It's 100% that way, because they're not even marking Lacazette anymore, and it just allows, like, their entire team, their midfielders, their center backs, and everybody to converge on Saka and Odegaard. And so they just don't have any room to do what they were doing before. And we also have a weird left side that's not really working right now. So we can't even try to switch play over to the left-hand side and get them exposed against Martinelli. So it's a tough one. I think Odegaard suffers when he comes back from international break, but also maybe he was feeling himself a little bit. I don't know if he was just feeling himself and like, oh, I'm just gonna come back and start playing. Like, people have found you out, bro. Like, they've also clocked that little backheel pass that you're doing. Like, you need to do something new. He didn't move, he didn't show, he didn't do anything. And I will really struggle to remember what ESR and him did, because they just didn't do anything. And the back line didn't feel confident trying to pass them the ball. Odegaard, just got to give him like a 4.5, 5. Like, I expect more from him. I know he scored a goal. We kind of got us back in it. But we needed that. Like, we needed him to do something from like minute 1. Like, they just came out there and they were like, okay, I'm just going to kind of meander into it and they're going to give me space. They're not going to give you space. Like, they're not going to give you space. And their clear plan was to smash ESR and smash Odegaard and hope that the referee doesn't give them cards. And of course, the referee didn't give them cards like he should have been giving them cards, but you could just see like Casado and Basuma smash, Mwepu and Casado smash. Like, they were just smashing Odegaard and ESR. And we need more physicality in this team as well. Like, you can't have Odegaard and ESR. They're too light. Yeah, Odegaard wasn't very good today. So there you go. Let's see. Tony says Odegaard was another one of our 5 out of 10, but Brighton smashed our ball progression. And here's the thing. It's like we got found out and got injuries at the wrong time, because now even our plan A probably would have looked a lot less dangerous, because even with Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney, people still know what we're trying to do, and we haven't developed another layer of our game. We can't when teams decide to smash us, we can't ride challenges, we can't hit back, we can't compete physically with other teams. And then also we don't have the ability to just kick it into corners and run after it and try to put teams under pressure. I did not see a single Brighton defender turn back towards their goal and run. Everything was in front of them. Our entire game is in front of the other team. We have no ability to pass it in behind and make things happen. And we just make it so easy. That's just shit. Like, it just is. Amira says, O needs to be closer to goal. Otherwise, he's non-existent. He also needs to be closer to other players. Like, I was thinking that maybe ESR and Odegaard need to be closer together so that they can play off of each other. There was nobody to play off of. Them two isolated is like they are dead in the water, because there's nothing that they can do in terms of like just kick it and run or do anything. They're so not good when they're not next to anybody else. Let's see. Yeah, so Odegaard was not good. Coach Dave says ESR and Odegaard only play well together when ESR is on the wing and Odegaard is the 10. True. Okay. Oh, Melly says we've been found out because our manager refuses to play a striker who can stretch the field. Yeah. So I'm going to say this, like, ESR was so frustrating from minute one. He had a moment. There was 2 things that really pissed me off. I think this was before we even got scored on. The chance that there was like our first chance, Martinelli gets to the byline and passes it back, or and crosses the ball in, and it's just a neat cutback to Saka, who's running in onto it with his left foot, and ESR gets in his way, and it's the same thing that he did to Lacazette in the Aston Villa game. You're not even gonna score. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not even gonna score. The opportunities that you're getting, you're not even putting them away. But you're gonna get in Saka's way when he's running onto the ball on his left foot, and get in his way and run over the ball and stop his ability to run onto it and get a clean strike. That pissed me off. I was like, what is he thinking there? Then he had an opportunity to score and he took an unnecessary touch. He was in. Brighton gave us a chance. Like, it was one of those where they bobbled it in at the back. He took an additional touch and they blocked it. And I was just like, well, damn. After Crystal Palace, at Crystal Palace, he had 2 chances. Two chances, and he did not put them away. And then today, he did pretty much the same thing. And then on top of that, he just couldn't get in the game. He just couldn't get in the game. Like, he was jogging a lot. If you rewatch the game, he jogged so much. And there were just times where I'm just like, can you press? Can you put them under any sort of pressure? It's Brighton. It's not Barcelona. It's Brighton. They'll give you the ball, So ESR really struggled today. And like the other day, we were talking about ESR potentially playing as a number 8 on the left-hand side. But that was like potentially over time, when he gets the physicality to be able to exist in a midfield at the Premier League level. He's just not there. At this moment, he's like a forward. And I just don't know what's going on with him. Like, he was outperforming his XG. He was. he was outperforming his XG. So we're probably thinking he's going to score every single time he touches the ball. I know he's not going to, but that's 3 chances that he's had in the last 2 games that if he scores at least 1 or 2 of those, we're not feeling like we could probably come back into the game. So ESR was really disappointing. I got to give him a 4 today. I probably could give him lower, but I don't want people on my back. I really don't. He just did nothing in the game. And as a midfielder, you can't do nothing. Your midfielders need to be your most involved players in the game. They cannot do nothing. And when Thomas Partey is there, how integral is his play to what we do? You know, most of our moves and everything could be drawn back to him. Xhaka, he touches the ball a lot, helps us progress up the pitch, helps us change the point of play. As a midfielder, you cannot go missing in games, and that's exactly what he did. And it's just, ooh, wow. Yo-Yo says, think things will be rectified when players are put back in their preferred positions. But is Arteta, can he humble himself enough to do that? Like, because he should have done it today. There was no reason to do what he did today. Like, you've already seen against Villarreal, that didn't work. So I was hoping that he would just play Nuno at left back and put Xhaka in midfield and just do something normal, but he didn't. And so I don't know if he's humble enough to do it. All right. Let's see. Mackie says ESR lacks the awareness to play 8. Sorry, that can't be coached. Wow. Let's see. High Tech J says ESR gets a 2. He was woeful. I mean, it's hard because I don't want to go too hard, but like I could literally give ESR like a 2. Like the amount of jogging that he was doing was painful to watch, and he jogs a lot, but he gets away with it because he turns up in the final third and will score a goal or make something happen. But when he's not doing that, he's basically non-existent. Matthew D'Souza says, truth is, ESR has a ceiling, and I don't think we're far away from seeing it. He's good, but will never be great. I don't know. I don't want to project on a ceiling because I don't want to project on a ceiling just yet. I do think ESR needs to be playing in a position that highlights his attributes the best. And right now that's as a wing forward. Like, it's definitely not as an 8. But he's been really bad in the last couple of games. And I mean, he was okay against Aston Villa, but the last 2 games have just been like, damn, like how bad? Like, are you gonna be? Like, what is going on? Jean Rene says ESR in the press is not it for me. He doesn't press. Like, he won't press. Like, he won't harass. And overall, we've seen since Watford, we've seen a slow progression away from pressing. We pressed really hard in the time of the season where we were playing really, really well. Between December and probably late February, we were pressing really, really well, and we were really putting teams under pressure. Now, at Watford, we weren't pressing, and as the games kept ticking along, we're pressing less and less and less and less. I think a lot of that has to do with Lacazette, because since then he's been not running as much either. Let's see. Diallo says, we should feel comfortable to criticize our young academy graduates without feeling like people will come for you. ESR was shit. I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like, if you say something about the players, it's like you're killing them. But it's like, but I think if I asked them, how did you play? They would say I was terrible. Like, I know there's no way ESR thought he played good today. Like, there's no way. So yeah. Let's see. So yeah, midfield was so dead, like they were so bad, and it got worse like as we went forward. So Saka has been scouted, found out, and nullified in the last 2 games, and maybe the COVID is kicking in. But here's my freaking issue is that Saka has played like damn near every single game. And I know Pepe is not perfect, but he has at least 2 rotational options to play off of that right-hand side. He can even play ESR there. It has to be a left-footed player, fine. fine. If it just has to be a left-footed player, fine. You have Pepe. And since he's gotten his starting 11 ticking, he has not rotated at all. And so now we see a Saka. He's looking like his light is dimming a little bit. Um, he's just not as effective. And then the other teams have decided that they're going to shut down our right hand side. And so if you just put somebody else out there that can ask a different question, like with Pepe, if you were to put him on the left hand side, where he doesn't have to think, he can be really dangerous. But can't do that because you have to have a right footer on the left-hand side, and I refuse to play Pepe. I feel like we've ran Saka into the ground now, and I don't know if he'll be able to save us. He's been saving us all season. So I get why our substitutes are imperfect. They are. They're imperfect. Like Pepe is imperfect, but you can't just rely upon 11 to 12 players and expect to get through an entire season like that and not just at least shift things around ever so slightly to make sure that the defenses have something else to think about and that those players remain sharp. Saka, he didn't really do anything today. He was very much so nullified, but he never got one-on-one with a defender ever. And a lot of that has to do with them not having to mark. They didn't have to mark our midfielders. They didn't have to mark anybody. So they're just like, we could just stand on top of Saka. And he got kicked a bunch of times. Like he really didn't have anything to do. So I'm going to give him a 5. He was just average. Let's see. Matthew D'Souza says, Jess, if our form continues like this and we lose the North London Derby, will fans turn on Arteta? I mean, they're already going to turn now. I mean, you don't have to wait till the North London Derby. That's in May. We still what is it? It's April 9th. We still have so many games in between then. We still have to, the bad part about it is that this was a game that we should have got 3 points from. We go away to Southampton. Newsflash, they're not going to lose 6-7-0 to us. They're going to be like, this is a game that we can rebound. And they probably really can. I mean, if I watched us play, I would say this is a good game to come back to life on. Then we go into Chelsea, who have recovered from their big loss, Man United and West Ham before we play Tottenham. So I can't even begin to think of the North London Derby because by the time we get there, we could be full on Arteta out by then because we could easily slide and beyond the top 6. So I don't think it will take that long. I mean, people are turning now, So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we play 3 games in 7 days with a depleted squad, and we haven't figured out a way to play with the squad that looks normal. So I expect us to struggle further. So yeah, Martinelli, I think he's probably the only decent player out there that could probably say I did stuff. That cutback that he made for Saka should have probably ended in a better chance, but ESR got in the way. Martinelli was put back into left back, which was so stupid. I don't get it. So, and then he scored the 1 goal that we did have, and had that stood, we probably would have at least held on for the tie, I think. So I think Martinelli is probably the only player that I'll give above a 5. I'll give him a 6. But again, Arteta nullified his biggest strength by putting him back in defense to show Nuno how shit he was or something, or I don't know. So yeah, it's just, I don't know what to say. Martinelli tried, but what could he do? That whole left-hand side was so bad in terms of being able to try to get him into good positions. It was just dead. So, and then we get on to Lacazette, who I think has checked out. And this is the thing. This is always the risk that you run by relying upon players that don't have any dog in the fight. Lacazette is going to get a free contract somewhere. The level of that will depend on what he does, but like when players are out of contract, you don't rely upon them. And I know we gave him the captain's armband and some hope that will keep him engaged, but he has fully checked out of what we're doing right now. He's not pressing, he's not shooting, he's not running. He has no excuse not to be because he didn't go on international break. He's fine. So, this whole thing with Lacazette is pathetic. It's very much like I like what Lacazette brings to the team when he's engaged, but when he's not engaged, he gives nothing. And it's been coming for a while. I was hoping that he could snap out of it after international break, but it's been coming. His influence on the team has been less and less and less, and so our attack has suffered more and more and more, and we haven't figured out something different to do. And I don't think Arteta can coach anything different. I think he coached this and got this as good as he possibly could get it, and it's falling away. So, Lacazette is terrible. Like, he really was so bad. It's like laughable at this point. And now that we're not fighting for top 4 cuz Tottenham will win this game and we won't like it is what it is. Can we really count on him to help make sure that we don't slip out of the top 6? I don't think so. I don't think there's any reason to keep him on the pitch anymore. I think we need to do something different. It's basically just a let's see what we have for next season kind of job now. Anybody who's not really going to be involved next season doesn't need to be playing anymore because you can't count on them now. And so Lacazette really disappointed me today. He was really bad against Crystal Palace, but today he really just was so bad. And it is like playing with 10 men. And again, not getting a striker. I know that it's like, well, what striker would we have gotten? Honestly, you could have gotten somebody like Mateta and done a better job than what we have now. It wasn't like we needed to get our number one guy right now. We could have gotten something else. Well, we just decided not to, and it's kicking us in the ass. So yeah, he was terrible. I have to give him like a 2. Like, I'm sorry, like I can't the academy players, I'll give them a little bit higher because I don't want people to come for me, but Lacazette gets a 2. Like he just was so bad. And Arteta, he was so bad today. He did exactly what I knew he would do, and because I tweeted that the lineup the 2 days before the game, and it was the exact lineup that we had today. And people were like, "He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that." I'm like, "That's exactly what he's gonna do because he's stubborn and he he gets into moments of adversity and he can't get us out quickly. And that's his lack of his experience and his hubris, and he won't humble himself. And so instead of wrapping his arm around Nuno and trying to get him to just play left back a little bit better and coach him up, he decided to weaken midfield and put a center midfielder at left back, expose Sambi, and do something that we already knew didn't work because we saw it last season. We saw it last season. We saw it at the beginning of the season. We saw it against Sunderland. That midfield does not work. So Arteta has got to take the majority of the blame. He has got to take the majority of the blame here today. And where I couldn't blame him against Crystal Palace because that was as strong of a lineup as we could have put out. And I just thought that the players were weak. Today, he didn't do his job to keep us from spiraling. And that was definitely a spiraling type of performance today. No energy, no pressing, there was so many there was like 10 to 20-minute periods in the game where it just didn't look like we even knew what we were supposed to be doing. That's a lack of coaching, I think. You can say that they knew what they were supposed to be doing and they just weren't doing it, but I think it was clear today that it was Arteta, right? He was so bad today. He really failed. Yeah, let's see. Eureka says Arteta cannot manage a squad and we are paying for it. That is the same questions we were asking last season, and we're seeing the same things. Like we're seeing the exact same things. And he expects to get a different result. He did the same thing, and this time he actually had a left back. And I know Nuno was not perfect against Crystal Palace, but he wasn't as bad as people made him out to seem. When you rewatch the game, the goals, a lot of that was some of it was like I have to say, like, I thought Gabriel led us into that black hole against Crystal Palace. And Nuno just followed behind him because he didn't have a strong center back to lead him. But Nuno has qualities that we could have used today, especially because we lack physicality. Without Tomiyasu and without Nuno, we really lack and Thomas Partey. We don't have anybody that can be physical. And so we don't I just don't understand why he couldn't just play Nuno. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't get it. So Arteta really shit the bed today, and I don't have very much confidence that he's gonna be able to get us out, like, unless he can humble himself and say, "I made a mistake, shouldn't have done it," put his arm around Nuno, but, like, you played Martinelli and Xhaka over him in that position. The next time that he will be able to play for us will be away from home at Southampton. This was because Brighton were not good today. They weren't. Like, if we had decided to play at all, we probably could have won that game. So, this was the last opportunity Arteta had to just try to get Nuno going, and he shit it. Like, he just killed it off. Like, he just stomped it into the ground. Now you can't use him anymore, and so I expect to see this weird Frankenstein version of Arsenal until the end of the season. 'Cause he will not just say like, "Oh, like, this didn't work," you know? Um, let's see. Adrian says, "Jess, what do you do when you're left with nothing? It was not good enough going for players. When you have a manager who's not confident with the players he has, Mikel is the issue." He was definitely the issue today. High Tech J says, in my opinion, Arteta coming from City has always been a hindrance. He's so tough and cutthroat with our players who don't have the quality and mentality to handle that. Not only that, we don't have the same quality, like world class players that you could just play. That's the thing. It's like he's harsh with some players as if he has somebody similar in quality or better to bring off of the bench. And he really only really managed the 11 plus 1, and everybody outside of that has been on the outskirts of the team so much that they can't come in and do anything. And now you're like, "Okay, we're under pressure. Let me bring you in and move you around and put you in positions that you're not suited to play," and it's just rough. It's just rough. I'm just glad we didn't get any red cards. Nuno Milsey said, or Gunnar Milsey says, it's not Nuno's fault. If you sign an attacking left back, you need to change the way you play. Switch Cedric out for holding and put White at right back. That was an option, but he chose to double down on, I don't trust Nuno. So Xhaka, you play left back. And let me just expose the entire midfield. I mean, he really shit the bed today. Tony says Arteta 0, setup failed. The setup was so bad, it didn't even have solutions at halftime. Exactly. Because if you play Nuno first and he shits the bed again, then at least you can move things around. But because he didn't start with Nuno, there was no way he was going to bring him off the bench at that point. It was just done. Let's see. Coach Dave says, Jess, you have been blindly going along with supporting Arteta the whole fucking season. A better manager can get more out of our team. I actually haven't. I've criticized him when he needed to be criticized, and I have given him credit where credit was due. The issue with a lot of this fan base is that they're dead set on being really binary about everything. And you either have to be Arteta in or Arteta out. And if you're not constantly bashing him and saying that he's the shittiest manager that ever lived and Paella Pulis and all this kind of stuff, then all of a sudden that means that you've been blindly supporting him. What I've always said is if he doesn't keep us in the top 6, he's gone for me, you know? And I also criticized the fact that they didn't get anybody in January. I thought that that was going to be the very reason why we didn't make the top 4. I also like this whole you're blindly going along with it is untrue. It's just I didn't continue to kick him when we were winning games. And me not kicking him when we're winning games doesn't mean that I think that he's the perfect solution. I don't really get that. I think in this fan base, we have like this sickness and this toxicity where it's like, okay, now we're losing. So I'm going to go to everybody who wasn't killing him and say that you're the problem. When all I did was say, I want to wait until the end of the season to see where we finish. And if he finishes outside of the top six, I think he should go. You know, this whole blindly thing is just like, no. And then what you guys also like to do is if I have people on the show that don't agree with what you're saying, you think I've said those exact same things. Some of the people that come on this channel are positive, some are not so positive, and that doesn't mean that I align with their views as well. So that's 100% untrue, to be honest. Yo-Yo says, what bothered me most is very early in the game, both Gabriel and Sambi were arguing. These players need help. I mean, do you think that maybe the mood was just down because maybe they just knew like they don't trust Sambi, and there may have been a lot of that. Like Ben White and Gabriel are sitting back there like this is a lost cause, Sambi. Because as much as I love Sambi, he's had some really high profile fuck ups this season, playing in that role. And maybe they just kind of felt like season done. That's what it looked like because they don't have Thomas Partey. But again, you don't have that issue if you go into the January transfer window and make sure you bring somebody in because you didn't have to have the perfect solution, but you needed something better than what you had. That's the issue. It's almost like the signing. It's either Dennis Suarez or the perfect signing, and there's nothing in between. There were options in between. We just chose not to take them. Let's see. Orpheus Jones says, drop Laka for who? Same people saying Martinelli up front are the same people who wanted ESR to play left-sided center mid. I mean, you could just try something different. Like, Lacazette up front, like, I guess I'm not saying that I feel like Martinelli just should play up front, but could you not try like maybe two strikers up front and put Martinelli up there and play like a 4-4-2? Or could you just maneuver things around a little bit and make sure that your left back is playing more like a winger, like Tierney used to? So when Martinelli is on the wing, he can pinch in more and we can almost have like him as a striker. There's different ways that you could play. Martinelli as a striker is a concept right now, but the more games go on, I'm just like, so what are we going to do about Lacazette? Because what he's doing now, if he's not linking play, which he didn't really do that well today at all, could we not do something a little bit different? Can't we get Odegaard playing off of Martinelli or something? There's got to be something different that we can do. But now it's too late to try it. There you go. It's too late to try it. Blaze says, Jess, Arteta will never humble himself. He let Aubameyang go. He won't bring another striker to replace. We paying sacrifices when we didn't buy players in January. Yeah, we really needed to bolster the squad. I think that's why a lot of Arsenal fans were really critical of that transfer window because we knew that the squad was thin, and then all it was going to take was a couple of injuries, and it is a lot of that. It is that, but equally, I think we should be in a position where we can sustain a couple of injuries and still play well. I think that's more my issue, is not so much that I almost feel like the issue I have more is not, I know we should have I think there needs to be a way that we play, even with the players that we have now, that solves problems when we're not playing well. That's what I'm not seeing, is that we're not able to solve problems when we're not playing well. Because once we went down, we knew we were losing. We've only come back one time under Mikel Arteta, and that was against Wolves, and that happened really late in the game. So, yeah, I think even without getting reinforcements with the players that we have now, because this is Arteta's team and these are the players that he chose to keep. He needs to have a plan B that could get us out of Dodge, and he just doesn't. So I don't know. Diallo says, you can criticize Arteta without being Arteta out. Let's be honest. We have been doing well this season until the last 2 games. A bit of perspective, please. But that's the thing. It's like, when we're playing well, all the really hyper positive people were going to all the negative people and gloating about it. Now it's going the other direction. For me, it's like I don't really live in that atmosphere. Like, that's not really what I'm here to do. I am somewhere in the middle on most things. But I've been very consistent the entire season, is that I've never said top 4 was a certainty. I didn't like some of the Arsenal fans going too far and basically saying that top 4 was finished. I always felt like it was going to be difficult. Top 6-ish is where I thought we'd finish. But I also said we could finish anywhere between 5th and 7th, because at our best, we're probably the 5th place team. But at our worst, we're 7th or 8th still, with the lack of depth, with the lack of plan B. We're just not as strong as I feel like people think we are. But when we're playing really well, we look really good. So it's like, it's a tough one. But both sides do it. Like, both sides do it. Like, it's not just the negative people that come out of the woodwork whenever we lose games and then start going, you're the one, you're the problem. The over positive ones do it too. It's just weird. Yo-Yo says, personally, I think Nketiah's do a start. My thing is, if you start Nketiah, you need to drop Lacazette. Like, I don't want to see some like Lacazette Nketiah front 2 type of madness. Like, just play Nketiah and see what happens. But you have to play differently when you play with Nketiah. He's not going to drop into the midfield. What is Nketiah best at? Poaching. So you need to get crosses, quality crosses into the box, cutbacks, things like that. You need to cause issues in the opposition's box. How do we do that without progression? That's my issue, is that once we lost the progression through Thomas Partey, there had to be a different way of us progressing the ball and getting through midfield. I don't know what that is now. Because Arteta has completely just thrown me for a loop. Let's see. But see, Coach Dave, like, I'm just a realist. His man management is horrible. That's your opinion, and that's fine. But to come at me and say that I've been blindly following him for this whole season and all this kind of stuff is a fabrication. It's just, I wasn't screaming Arteta out and calling him out of his name and still saying that he was shit when we were winning all those games. It's you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there needs to be some balance there, even though you're entitled to your opinion. Orpheus Jones says the difference between Arsenal and Spurs was always going to be Kane and Son. We don't have players with their ability and experience to finish chances and win matches. Do you guys think that, like, okay, just thinking a little bit further beyond that, like, by the way, Arteta got a 0 for me. He was terrible. But do you guys think that, like, because there was a report that came out from Sam J. Dean or whatever, that where Arteta wants to fill the squad back up. Like, now that we have like 22 players, but 3 are out of contract, and he wants to make sure that he gets the roster to 25. Do you think it's just about him getting more players in the squad and having more depth? Or do we need does Arteta need to improve upon the management part? Because I always get to this point in the season, because this has happened before, where although I think we need better players, we need our Son and Kane type players. We need a better midfielder. We need another right back. If he can't manage the squad now, if he hasn't been able to manage the squad, because he had a bigger squad last season and he didn't use it well. He has a smaller squad this season and he's not managing it well. So what you're meaning to tell me is that Arteta needs basically a squad like Man City to manage the squad properly? No. Like, as much as I know that we need our Son and Kane, and that will be a big differentiator, what if our Son and Kane get injured? because Arteta plays them every single game and they get injured. Then what? Well, you know what I mean? Like that's I think bigger issue here is not so much that we have like this small squad, like it is that, but I watch other managers and I see that they have players that they can bring off of the bench, whether it's one or two that don't look like they've never played before when they come off the bench. I don't know. There is a recruitment issue, but I think the management issue is bigger than that. And it's kind of like how do I say this? So you know, when somebody says like, if you can't manage your money when you have like little bit of money, even if you get a lot, you're not going to be able to manage it better. Like, so if I only have $10 in my account and I can't manage that, if I had a million, I would still manage it the same and not be able to save that money and use it properly. I kind of feel like we're in the same position here with Arteta. Like, if he can't manage the squad as it is now, then I'm not convinced that even if he gets a bigger one, he's going to be able to manage it correctly. But that's just my take on it. Why would I give you more players and better players? Oh no, it's crazy. Where I think Arteta has done well is finding a system that works, um, where the players know what they're doing. We look well coached, we look strong, we look confident. But again, it's the same thing that happened last season. Is when after we start playing well and stuff, once a couple of little hiccups come, key injuries, whatever, you can't fix it from there. Amira says, fact is, Eddie's been our sharpest striker since preseason. Problem is, he seems to only know how to hit the crossbar. I'd start him just to give the opposition defense someone to think about. But I guess you can change Eddie, but you need to figure out a way to make sure that Eddie gets service that Eddie requires to score goals. He's a poacher, and that's pretty much it. He has rounded off his game a little bit more. I'll give him credit for that. I won't be like, I won't act like he hasn't improved at all. He has improved on other parts of his game. But if you don't get the ball into dangerous areas and get it into the box, he's basically useless. So, what I would say to that is you can bring Eddie in, but there has to be an answer to the midfield, period. Let's see. Mackie says Arteta had 150 million to spend in the summer and on one game a week he gets us up the table. If we finish 7th or 6th, then he's massively failed because what more does he need? I mean, that's another aspect of it is that we have one game a week. But even with one game a week, you still need to rotate the squad. You can't just play your players until they break. And that's what we do. We play them until they break, and then we can't do anything. So, yeah, I mean, it's a huge question. Like, I still think that Arteta will stay no matter what. I just don't see them sacking him. I think he's convinced them that all I need is better players, more players, and we're fine. But we spent a lot in the summer. You got Sambi and Nuno. You knew at some point you were going to need to use them. So if you couldn't, then we needed to be in the January transfer window, making sure we were active. Instead of saying, well, let's just hope that Thomas Partey stays fit. So weird. So weird. Let's see. Yeah, top 4 is gone as far as I'm concerned, you guys. Nashville Gooner says, I remember making a comment last year at this time saying we need to play El Neni. How sad is that I think we need to play El Neni again? It is sad because I do think that maybe that will be an answer for Southampton. We're going away from home. They're going to fancy their chances against us and want to repair what they did today by losing like 6 or 7-0 to Chelsea. So we need stability away from home. If Sambi can't do well, which is not all his fault, but if he can't do well at home in the comfort of the Emirates, I would not put him in midfield again against a better team. So I would say I would play El Neni with Xhaka in midfield, knowing that our progression is not going to be as good. But what I'll say is like, if it's going to be on the impetus, really, the impetus is going to be on us. But like really for Southampton, their fans are going to be wanting them to come at us and all that kind of stuff. It wouldn't hurt us to play Elneny, play Xhaka, be a little bit more conservative, and then try to play long to Martinelli and Saka and isolate, and then try to get the ball into the box. Like, because I just don't see how we're going to be able to pass around Southampton with Sambi. Equally, I don't think Elneny and Xhaka provide a partnership where we're going to be really progressing the ball very well. So I don't know, but it is sad. We shouldn't even be talking about Elneny at this point. We should have bought midfielders. Um, let's see. Diallo says, side note, Spurs have been shit this whole half, and yet they are winning and will go on to score more goals. We can't even draw games when we're playing average. We just need a goal threat so badly. Yeah, and I'll say this, that like I think one of the things that I like at the end of the season is probably something that we'll talk about, but we just don't draw enough games. Like we either win or we lose. That's it. We either win or we lose. We were getting more draws earlier in the season. I think that's because our defense was more solid. So our defense was really absorbing a lot of the bad play that was coming from the attack. But ever since Tomiyasu went down, our defense just has not been as good. And so now we can't absorb it. And we equally cannot score goals. So we're just either a win or a loss type team. And that's the only reason why Man United are close to us, really. If one or two of those games, if three of the games that we lost, we had drawn instead of lost them, we would have been fine. We could have drawn against Everton. We could have probably drawn today. That's two that I can think of just right there that we didn't need to lose, but we just lost them because we couldn't absorb because our defense was not stable enough. But equally, we don't have enough attack to get us out of trouble. We need a lot of shit, but yeah, same questions. Nashville says Tavares does not work without Tommy, but Tavares could have worked without Tommy if Chambers was here. Like, like it's just crazy. Colin Young says he is too confident to learn. Jess, his greatest asset is his biggest weakness. Yeah, it is. It is his biggest weakness. Yo-Yo says, I've always viewed Arteta's development and ceiling as separate from the squad's, why I've never had patience for him. And I think we're looking at our players as well, like they're these really bad players and like they just don't have anything, but we know that they're good and they have a bright future ahead of them. We do have to be careful about who we allow to lead them into this next stage because their 2 years, like not the majority, but they're 2 years really, in my opinion, into their development at Arsenal. So Arteta has been here for 3 years, but we need to see more progression from these players. We need to see more stability from these players in adversity. I'm not really seeing that. I'm seeing the same patterns that the team kind of has these same qualities, no matter who's there, no matter who's not there, whatever, under Arteta in adversity. And so Arteta, as a manager, does have the requirement to get his players out of bad situations. And he doesn't have the same quality as other managers in terms of like, world-class players to bail you out. So you have to get the team to bail itself out by the choices that you make. And he hasn't really done that. So where he's progressed in terms of getting us to play better attacking football in parts of the season, getting us to play a brand of football that we feel like we can move forward with, he still has stagnated in that department. And that's a big department. Let's see. Lionide, I feel you. Why rearrange 3 positions to avoid playing Tavares at left back? I do not know. I just asked the question that like, so we get the striker, we get the midfielder, does everything change? Because we're gonna get injuries regardless. You know, so what are we gonna do? What I will also say, like, this really just bothered me in today's game. There's some good questions here. Hold on. You guys, if you have questions, like, I'll do, because I don't Yeah, I have some time. I can do like some more Q&A if you guys want to. I know we need some therapy right now. So if you guys want to throw your questions, I'm going to try to find some of the ones that I saw earlier and star them. But I need to rant about this one thing that just really is bothering me so much. Um and it's about um our physicality. Um when we were talking about like the striker that we need and the midfielder that we need and all that kind of stuff during the international break. Oh, I'd love to go back to the international break as well, because that was a lovely time. But during the international break, we were talking about the types of players that we need. Um, this team needs athleticism and physicality like I've never seen. I thought we were moving into a direction where we were getting that, but now when I'm looking at the team and the players that we rely upon, they're just too weak. Like they're too weak to play in the Premier League, and unless they're extremely technically talented, which some of our players are not, then they need to be able to ride challenges and make challenges. On transition, we were getting smoked. Like watching Basuma and Mwepu and Caicedo just dribble past our players, just boom, like, and they're not putting in challenges. They're not able to stop them. They're not even be able to catch up without the ball is killing me. Um, the lack of physicality in this team is shocking. And if we're going to build this team out further, we have to have players that can compete. A lot of what you can do in those first 5 to 10 minutes against a team that decides like, well, you know what? We're just gonna we're just gonna play we're just going to play you. You know, we're just going to put in because that's all Brighton were doing for like the majority of the game was every single time one of our players got the ball, they just smashed them. Boom. They were barely playing football. Um, you have to be able to do that back in a way or ride those challenges so that they know, oh, this is not going to be able to work. We just don't do it enough. And when we get fouled so far away from the box that it doesn't matter. We just don't like Saka does this sometimes, but like sometimes you need to ride the challenge and get them grabbing onto you and stuff like that so you can fall in the box, so that you can fall right outside the box. We just don't have enough ability to compete. And I think Martinelli has a little bit of that, but he's still kind of growing. But Odegaard, Smith Rowe, and Sambi, Cedric, none of them are physical enough. And Xhaka, he's a weird one because he's not really like he doesn't lack size or anything like that, but he doesn't have physicality really either. Like he's one of those that just kind of throws you to the ground instead of actually like trying to use his body, and that's frustrating. Thomas Partey isn't really even that physical. Like he adds a little bit of a layer of physicality to our midfield, but he's really not like a Basuma type player. And watching Basuma, I'm like, damn, we could use something like that or somebody that like can ride challenges and get us up the pitch and when they decide that they're just going to kick us, it doesn't matter, it doesn't work. Tomiyasu helped us with that a lot. These players are too freaking weak for me. And that also is like, why do we always keep getting these injuries as well? Like, is it something that our physios are doing? Like, I'm asking questions. Let's see. High Tech J says, our starting back five is physical, our forwards aren't. Yeah, I agree. Like Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, and Tierney is fine. Like that's fine. Even Ramsdale because he's a little bit more aggressive than like Leno is. But once you start peeling back those layers, we're so weak and we're really weak in midfield and especially without Thomas Partey and the forwards just they're so weak. Like it's rank. And I can't figure out why we're so much weaker than everybody else. Amir says this team needs to hit the gym. Why does it look like the entire team was fasting? I don't know. Like it's wild. Let's see. And Antonden says just don't bring up Saka's name in this, but yes, you're right. It's a disgrace. Um yeah, high tech J party is athletic but not physical. Exactly. It's just I know that it's like I know a lot of Arsenal fans are like, okay, well, I don't want just players that are like athletic. I want players that are technical on the ball. But in the Premier League and even in Europe, here's the thing, in the Premier League, you have to have athleticism and physicality. You cannot play like unless you have the top world-class technical players like City does, you need to have physicality in your team. You need to have big center backs. You need to have midfielders that can throw it around a little bit. You need to have forwards that put defenders off. And we just don't have that. And then even if we're in Europe, like I think that's why Premier League teams do so much better than the European teams in general, is because just the overall physicality makes them hard to deal with. And I think we need more of it. Like I just don't think our team has enough of it. They're just so it bothers me, like, so much to watch them just kind of, "Oh, it's just weak." Colin says, "What are we on aggregate against the Premier League top 3 teams on the current table?" I don't know. Tony Smith says, "The whole team and Arteta are at 0." Damn. Yo-Yo says, "City aren't full of brutes. It's an simplification." No, I mean, I said that City is the only team that I think doesn't need a lot of physicality because they have top technical players, and the system that they play allows them to not have to have that. But so City is the team that I pulled out of that. But look at the other teams in the league, the top teams, the good teams, they have physicality in their team. It's like it's not that it's because people feel like if I'm saying you need physicality, you don't need the other stuff. You do need it, but we lack physicality in general, all like at all. Like it's crazy. Look at Liverpool. Like when we played against them, there were some moments where it's like men against boys. We've been saying that a lot. Like sometimes it looks like men against boys when we play against them. So, yeah. High Tech J says athletic, physical, and technical forwards cost a minimum of 60 million. That's what you have to pay though. Like you looking at midfield, like when I'm looking at attackers, I'm thinking, can they can they like battle with some of the bigger center backs that we have like in the league? And that's what we need. Like we need that, you know? I don't know. Let's see. Survivor says, I think we haven't had a truly great physical defender in over a decade. Midfielder. Yeah, it's you need that. Like, I just think you need it. Like, look at Fabinho, like some of the work that he does. Like, Thiago is not, he's small, but he doesn't get bodied. He doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't get bodied. Henderson, you can't body him. Um, it's just something that we need to work on. You can't be in the Premier League with all these like really small players like that don't have any physicality. Um, Survivor says, "Are we going to be able to challenge for top 4 next season with Europa Conference League commitments? Our squad is paper thin." I mean, that report that came out from Sam J. Dean was saying that Arteta wants to fill out the squad. Now, what Arteta wants and what Adu wants are two completely different things a lot of the time. Like, I don't think they actually agree on a lot of things. But um, if you only have if you have like 22 players and 3 of them are out of contract and are going, I don't know how you get how you get the team from like 17, 18 players to 25 players with quality. Like I just don't see that. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to buy enough players of quality to make sure cuz like look what happened this past transfer window. We bought Ben White and Odegaard and Ramsdale, and those were like the main like expensive players that we bought. And then we paid 20 million or something for like Sambi and 6 for Nuno. Like I don't think we can have another window like that. I think we need to buy better quality, but when you do that, you can't really spread it across so many positions. So, I believe we'll be thin again, but I'm more concerned about can Arteta manage being in more than one competition because he can't manage us in one. He's really struggling. Um, let's see. Let's see. Yo-Yo says it's a power and pace league. Arsenal's base, Gabby and White and 34 and Party are athletic. Arteta chose to disband this by taking the Swiss out and dropping Odegaard in. It baffles me how we just are not getting it. That like in the Premier League, you have to have players in your team that can ride challenges and compete. Like, we didn't win any second balls. Like, we were just standing still. And it's just, I think you can bridge a gap sometimes when you look at the way Crystal Palace played us. I mean, they won't win all the games like that. But if we just had a couple of those types of players in our team, like they were running, moving out of their positions. Like, we were scared to move away from our positions because we knew if we got beat, we couldn't get back. So you don't want to get caught on transition. And that's our issue is if we can't dominate and control a game, we can't play the transition game, especially not with Thomas Partey because we just don't have anybody that can run back and forth and go box to box. It's wild. Like it's wild. Diallo says sometimes we just look like boys. That's why you need players like Partey to have authority on the ball so that teams can back off. They have realized we are weak on duels, so that's stepping up on us now. Exactly. And Mackie says Adu is the only person that deserves a lower rating than Lacazette. Why do you feel that? I feel like people are going in on Adu, and I'm wondering what that's about. If that's about not getting somebody in the transfer window or what. Yeah, I mean, you guys know my thoughts on Adu. If you don't, I'm not as biggest fan. So I just I'm kind of waiting to see what happens when we get to the summer because if we spent 150 million and then went into the January transfer window, did nothing. We chased Vlahovic for the entire time. We could have probably brought in a couple of players by not going after somebody that clearly wasn't going to come to our club. But and then we need to finish in the top 6, and even that would be a little bit disappointing depending on how far we fall away from the top 4. But if we finish anywhere outside of that, there needs to be huge questions asked because we're not getting the most out of the squad. We're not improving. Like we will have improved a little bit, but like the totality of the season, we will not have improved a lot, if that makes sense. In the best that we've played, we look better than the best that we played last season. But in the totality of the season, if we finish in 7th or 8th, we're basically the same team, and that needs to be looked at. It has to. Let's see. Let's see. Blaze says, Jess, it was shocking how Brighton scored the first goal and there was no one trying to stop Trossard to not score the goal. Do you think our midfielders should do better at that moment? Yeah, when we were talking about the original goal and how I was saying that I didn't think White or Gabriel were at fault. I specifically mentioned the midfield because I saw ESR and Odegaard, all of them jogging. And that's scary. Like we're at home in front of our fans. You just lost a game embarrassingly against Crystal Palace. You still have an opportunity to put pressure on Spurs and you guys are walking against a dead Brighton team. It wasn't even it would have been different if it just didn't click, but you could see that the team was playing well or at least giving effort. But it wasn't clicking and the effort levels weren't there either. There's something not right there. Like Yo-Yo said, Sambi and Gabriel were like going back and forth. So maybe there's just a level of like, this team is not good enough to get us to where we want to go. And the players that have been playing are watching the players coming in and the changes that the manager is making. And it's frustrating. And to a certain extent, I can say that like if I was one of the players that's been playing really well all season, we've gotten ourselves within a shout of top 4. But we went through the January transfer window, didn't get anybody, and then our key player got injured, and the manager is putting Sambi in and moving Xhaka out of midfield, I would be frustrated. I would be. Yeah, Spurs are definitely getting top 4. Mackie says, all Adu has done is cancel contracts, bring in Deadwood. as his signings, Marie and Cedric. He went to Brazil for Bruno G and came back with Marie, for fuck's sake. Yeah, and I mean, like, I hate to point back at it, but like, even though Spurs have Kane and Son, before the transfer window, they were playing with Harry Winks in their midfield, and he was terrible. He was bad. Um, and they went out, and I made fun of them at that point, but they went out and got Kulusevski and Bentancur, and they've been way better since then. And they bought Bentancur for like 25 million or something like that, and Kulusevski is on like a loan but will become an obligation to buy. Would that not be worth it to make sure that you ensure that you got top 4? Um, this is what I don't understand about Arsenal, is that we had an opportunity to make it into the top 4 and at least solidify our spot in the top 6, and we chose not to. How comfortable are you in your job where you don't think you need to make those choices? It's weird. So weird. Um, so yeah, it's really bad. But all I'll say is that it's really disappointing. Obviously, it's going to be really hectic on the timeline for the rest of the season, with Spurs obviously going to win today. I think we've really shot ourselves in the foot for top 4. I can't see it happening. The odds are going to really switch in their direction. And we'll be, what, 3 points behind them now or something like that? I think United are only like a point or 2 behind us. So and I think if West Ham win, they'll go above us. So top 6 is looking scary now. But we've done this to ourselves. Like, I don't feel like we've been hard done by or anything has happened to us and it's just unfortunate. I feel like we're making the exact same mistakes that we made last season, and we're just going to have to suffer with it because this was a very good opportunity to make it into the top 4, and we may not have that opportunity next season. Another, transfer window, but not really addressing key issues and other teams improving around us. If Spurs get top 4 and they have Conte, they're going to be able to attract very, very good players. So we may just be shut out at that point. Very good opportunity lost. I know that there's football to play, but knowing that what I looked at today at home against a really bad Brighton team, definitely not getting any points away from Spurs, definitely not beating Manchester United at home, definitely not beating Chelsea away from home. I don't even know if it can beat Southampton. So it's just is what it is. Newcastle, and like that's the thing, is like we have to play Leeds at home, Newcastle away. Those 2 teams are still kind of fighting for something. Everton at home on the last day of the season. Those games are going to mean something. And as we saw with Manchester United earlier on in the day, when you're playing against teams that have something to play for, you have to turn up. And I don't know if you guys have looked at Spurs' schedule, but they're not playing any teams that have anything to play for. By the time they play us, they could be 9 points ahead. Like, it's really just yikes, so season's done for me. But yeah. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, finished 6 points off last season. Finishing 6th isn't acceptable, especially when Danny and Coquelin are playing Champions League football. Yeah, no, I hear that. But that is kind of the level that we set. The players started talking about making top 4 and they flopped it. And so is the manager. So yeah, we're done. We are finished. So yeah, you guys, those are kind of like my final thoughts. I tried to go a little bit longer so we can make sure that we got all of our feelings out and all that kind of stuff. Don't think I'll feel better tomorrow. I was looking for this game to make me feel better, but Southampton, like nothing really feels, I don't know, it just feels like now. Because 3 points, I don't know. We're just so bad. Like, we're just so bad today. So we'll see. We'll be back on Monday to do a show. But I'll be out and about for the next couple of days. So I won't be able to do anything for tomorrow. I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to do anything tomorrow, but Monday I'll be back. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. No, I'm not gonna cry. I'm just, like, so tired of them. Like, I'm so tired of, like, doing this again, like, with no Europa League either, just fumbling at the last hurdle. Like, it's so annoying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the same thing. Emery kinda started to fail around this time. Arteta started to fail at this time last season. It just gets tiring, like, to the point where it's just like, "Oh, again? Great." So yeah, I'm a little bit just tired, um, of getting, like, my hopes up a little bit and then just for it to be dashed away. Um, Big conversations to be had over the next couple of weeks, on Arsenal, because if we don't finish in the top 6, we have not improved. And even finishing in the top 6, I think you could really question whether we improved at all. So, like the video, subscribe to the channel, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye, guys.